What happens when you've got a bunch of kids who are more interested in sport and less engaged in the classroom? Hey ProPhysio Plus crew, welcome back to the ProPhysio Plus podcast. This week we spoke to Jimmy from Academy Movement. Academy Movement's a not-for-profit organisation that provides schools with education consultancy and support services to start and maintain highly successful and engaging sports academies in schools. Jimmy Orange, Director of Academy Movement, is originally from New Zealand with 15 years experience as a secondary school teacher and 3 years experience as an education consultant. Academy Movement currently has school-based academies at Melton Secondary College, Narrawarren South P12 College, St Francis Catholic College, Sunshine College, Mernda Central College and Lara Secondary College. Remember, if you like this podcast, share it with a friend, rate it and give it a 5-star review.
Welcome back to the ProPhysio Plus podcast. I'm Josh, this is Fred, and we have Jimmy here from Academy Movement. We've roped him in for the quick 15-20 minute chat. All the kids are downstairs doing some taping and some big gym lifts with the rest of our team, but we thought we'd get him in for a quick chat. So over to you, Jimmy. Give us a bit of a backstory, mate. What is the Jimmy story and what is Academy Movement?
Yeah, so Academy Movement is a not-for-profit organisation that I started back in 2020, just before COVID hit. And what we do is we help schools start high-level sports academies, but it's really there for student engagement. We basically help the schools set up from the blueprint of what a successful academy looks like. What it should look like in terms of the KPIs that we're trying to get from our students. We help staff it, we provide all the curriculum for it, we make sure that it continues to grow and hit those KPIs over about a 5-year period. And it sort of all came about because I was a school teacher for 15 years, originally in New Zealand for my first couple of years of teaching, and then I came over to Melbourne, worked in a school called Fountain Gate Secondary College in Narrawarren North. Which at the time was quite a big growth corridor for Melbourne, so a lot of kids from backgrounds other than Australian, I suppose. And I started a rugby academy there as a teacher, but I was the head of science prior to that. So I knew when it came to starting an academy, I wanted to have some academic rigour behind it, educational outcomes and curriculum and accreditation that's linked with it. So I started that in 2015 with probably about 40 kids, one state player at the time as a rugby union player. Left that at the end of 2019. I think now we've got about 7 boys on professional contracts and 6 girls on professional contracts playing for the Melbourne Rebels women's team. My original state player was in the Wallaby squad by the time we finished up there, and he's over in Japan now playing professional rugby. Had 3 or 4 years with the Rebels as well. It was sort of a question at the end of 2019, or how can I make a bigger impact? How can I go out and do a new challenge or something like that? So yeah, that's how the Academy Movement was born. Yeah.
Beautiful. You said you started off with about 40 odd kids.
Yep.
How many are in the system at the moment?
Time at Fountain Gate probably ended with about 120 kids playing rugby, and from that one state player we were 30 state players by the time I left. So pretty good on-field stuff, but also every single one of those students in that program was pursuing an academic VC pathway, finishing year 12, and that was the thing I was sort of most proud of. That should be the focus of any program in a school, is how do you get better student outcomes, not how do you win a few trophies. So now we've got 6 schools under Academy Movement. So obviously no longer with Fountain Gate, but we've got Melton Secondary College, Narry South P12 College, St Francis Catholic College, which is actually a non-rugby academy school, so we do just generics. It's an elite sports academy there, so we take all athletes, individual team athletes, and it's strength and conditioning focused. So that's a low-fee paying Catholic school out there in Melton as well. And then we've got just recently signed Sunshine College, Lara Secondary College and Mernda Central College as rugby academies to launch with students next year.
Unreal, mate. Bit of a distance out of your driving. Whereabouts are you based?
Yeah, certainly getting the K's up. I'm based in Frankston South, so none of these are close to my house. Narry South would be the closest one.
Yeah, right. And then we've got you all the way out here to Hoppers.
It's certainly worth it for the impact we're having, and like I said, it's a new challenge for me, going from teaching to running a business and trying to get these programs into schools that are really working. Yeah, we get data on the kids sort of every week to see how they're going and make them accountable and all those kind of things. So in terms of like things like attendance and behaviour and all those things, like the results we're getting are incredible. And now kids are, you know, coming out to a day like this at ProPhysio Plus, doing some strapping and taping. You know, they're it's whetting their appetite. Do I want to be a physio, and what do I need to do that? And the younger you can catch a kid with some inspiration on a career rather than just a job to make money, you know, the more you can see some good results from them.
Yeah. I think when I was in year 11, year 12, even as early as year 10, like I always knew that I wanted to be like a PE teacher or an outdoor ed teacher, or I'd never sort of thought of like the personal training sort of side of things, and I knew that I wanted to be health and fitness field, but I wasn't too sure what I wanted to actually do. And now I've kind of taken that sort of step across into personal training and working alongside physios, and like everything that I'm learning here is stuff that I can then put across into my PT sort of side of things, and same thing, everything that I'm learning from there I can bring back across. So super handy, I think, and yeah, obviously getting these kids in now to, as you said, whet the appetite. Unreal.
Sounds very much, Jimmy, like this is a personal development program wrapped up in rugby, right? It seems a lot of this sort of stuff is around the development of the individual, and we're using rugby as the vehicle. But you mentioned there that you've got one college there's essentially a development program, and the rugby is not a part of it. So I guess what my question is how do you portray this to schools? Is it a case of we can really help your kids develop their rugby, or is it a case of we're using rugby as the vehicle?
It's definitely the latter. So in Victoria, where rugby union is a pretty minor sport,
that was my question. Yeah,
most schools, you know, they love it if they've got a good rugby team, but that's not their focus. Coming in selling them the best rugby team shouldn't be the focus. It's absolutely a vehicle for engagement for students. So currently, I would say, you know, being a teacher for 15 odd years, the level of student disengagement and low levels of student resilience on certain things as well has got pretty bad over the last few years. I feel like year on year it's starting to get worse, and also that lack of what am I going to do as a career, or do I even want a career? So
can you speak to specifics around those that lack of resilience with kids?
Yeah, so I guess there's been a lot of on the back of COVID, it's probably got worse. Kids were locked at home, and
that's what I was going to say. It was probably dipping beforehand, and then all of a sudden 3 years stuck at home. Obviously for this age group that we've got here, but more so for like the preps and 1s and 2s that are now coming to school for the first time this year or last year and just have no idea how to be in a classroom.
Yep, there's that. Then there's the social media presence, and there's what the algorithm feeds you on social media as well. So, you know, it's okay for a kid to feel sad. Doesn't mean you're depressed, and doesn't mean you need to leave class to go to a wellbeing office. So we're trying to give them some tools, and we've got a couple of check-in apps that we use around mental wellbeing as well, to help students realise sort of the difference between what's catastrophic and really bad in your life and what's not. So a classic test, and this was pre-COVID, like when I was a Fountain Gate teacher, we used to do a check-in just with our hand at the start of each session. How are we feeling? 5 being the best, 1 being the worst you could feel. And, you know, kids would have 1s and 2s up quite regularly. Why are you 1 and a 2? Oh, I'm tired. Well, 1 to me is like my parents just died in a car accident. Like, that's as bad as things get. Oh, yeah, you're right. I'm a 4. Or I'm a 5 because I'm still alive. I'm just a bit tired. I've got a roof over my head, you know. And it's just perspective with those kind of things. But one of the things that sport teaches us, and team sports in particular, in sports like rugby union, is resilience. Because probably the feedback for some of my boys, and I'll say, you know, big Trevor Jose, 6'8", got every gift you could want as a rugby player. But yeah, he come see me. Oh, you know, I just got called out by the coach in front of the whole team about my body size and stuff. And you do get quite protected by that at high school, you know, because that could be considered body shaming or whatever it may be. But in the real world, in professional sport, that's just internally you're copping that. And then if you start reading your own press on your performances and things, and now the social media, everybody's a critic now. you got to have some pretty thick skin to play professional sport. And so sport teaches resilience, and it teaches you to focus on the things that matter and not the opinions that don't and things like that. And, to an extent, school wraps people up in bubble wrap to when it comes to the real world.
Yeah, certainly. It was really recently, and I'd never thought about this, but someone mentioned, and this is, I guess, purely from a physical perspective, but I think the analogy holds. For me, it was playing rugby. You get used to falling over, getting back up, getting hit, and so there's a level of physical discomfort that you are used to from playing rugby, and also mental discomfort and discomfort around being called out and that sort of stuff. And that's just, you learn that that's a part of your life. And I think we as sports players, rugby players, forget that a lot of people don't have that experience and don't have that opportunity to live in that type of environment. And so when it does happen, that resilience that you speak to is not yet developed.
No, absolutely. And there's even things that it's tough as a coach sometimes, but we're a competitive high school rugby program or whatever it may be, and some kids are going to get left on the bench or not picked at all. And it's not a participation award, it's not a primary school, let's get into it and everybody have a go thing. I'm like, no, this is setting you up for real life. Like, you're going to go for your dream job one day and you might not get it. You're going to try to buy a house one day and it might fall through, or someone comes in and beats you with that. So it's learning to deal with the setbacks, and you can go two ways about it. But I think I read something the other day, life's hard, but it's even harder when you give up. And so that's probably what we try to carry through with what we do. Most of our schools are in low socioeconomic areas where the kids have got tough, potentially tough backgrounds, and they're already on the back foot a little bit. And I always say to them, if you can win here, you can win in the classroom and on the field and everything else, and go to uni and do all these things that maybe hasn't happened in your family, you can do it anywhere. You've just done a whole bunch of resistance training compared to somebody that hasn't had to do all those things. So yeah, we talk about that a lot. Sometimes the state of our rugby fields are pretty bad. They're full of potholes and they're hard as rock. And I'm like, it's just resistance training, guys. Because when you get to play at a school that's got golf greens for rugby fields, you're gonna find your 2 clicks faster than everybody else.
And when they get to play at your place, they won't have experienced that.
Yeah, they probably won't show up.
Come to our house. No, you're all right. Have you consciously reached out then to schools in lower socioeconomic areas as a business model, I expect?
Yeah, I guess from a business model perspective, the blueprint of what we do as a sports academy will work for any sport. It's just what's going to grab hold of those kids in that area. I mean, one of the reasons we do so much rugby union is rugby union is a sport for, in Melbourne, predominantly Pacifica players, like something like 70% of the club participation and registered players are from a Pacifica, Māori, Samoan, Tongan background, New Zealand background. That's our community here. Generally, your standard Australian Anglo-Saxon guys are probably playing footy. Like, that's the sport they've grown up with here, which is all good. But union is so appealing because of the values of the game and the safety around. As far as contact sports go, the serious injuries in union are comparatively quite low. And so we hit that one up and focus on that. But our model works for all. So if we go out to a low socioeconomic area that's got potentially a lot of, say, Sudanese students, and they love their soccer and basketball, we can set up an academy accordingly. What we did at St. Francis Catholic College in Melton was, that they were saying, I think basketball is really popular here. And I said, well, let's just survey your students. And basketball was the most popular, but if we added up all the individual athletes, they were about the same number that were competing at a club or organised sport level as the basketball players. However, they had far more representatives at a higher level than the basketballers, and then AFL wasn't far off and soccer wasn't far off, and some were playing cricket and or whatever. So for a school like that, it made sense for us to go, hey, let's not forget about the individual athletes, let's get stuck in and do a strength and conditioning focus, so we still use our same program, but we're not sport specific. But we encourage these athletes to play multiple sports for the school, and then the idea is to go, right, there's our swimmers, there's our basketballers, there's our whatever, and let's tailor our programs to make them better at their chosen sport.
So something I'm curious about is you speak to the ensuring that the kids get the academics and the social aspect of their life right before the sport. Can you provide a little more clarity around how that works with Academy Movement?
Yeah, so we provide curriculum resources to teachers. So for a teacher to plan a brand new subject properly could take them, if they were going to do it properly, they'd probably need the year off to do it really well for a couple of new year groups or whatever that may be. For me, that was COVID lockdowns for 2 years, was creating things like that. So like I said, I'm a science guy. I come from a science background. I did anatomy and physiology at university. I wasn't from a PE background, even though I coached rugby and did all that. And so I wanted to see, well, if we're going to do sports science, let's actually do real sports science. Let's do year 10 physics under a sporting context. Let's do, statistics, math statistics, but the statistics of sport, not just, looking at player averages, but looking at the outliers and the kind of statistics that a coaching staff would need to see and understand and analyse to pick the best touring squad, or to figure out what's causing this, that, and the other thing. Once our students hit sort of year 10, we start to pair it up with a Certificate 3 in Sport and Rec, and we'll do a focus on the sport that we offer. So for rugby, we'll do a rugby union focus. If there's a unit of competency around injury prevention, we'll look at common injuries in rugby and assess that. If they need to conduct a session, it'll be a rugby session with the junior kids at our pre-academy or whatever it may be, our year 7s and 8s. So those students will get VCU units through that. They'll get the certificate, they'll get first aid as a qualification. We also tap in, we do some stuff around officiating. Every sport struggles for officials. It's the hardest gig in the game. So every one of our students, out there, year 9 and year 10 will have a World Rugby Level 1 officiating, and they can go referee a game. The worst thing that happens from that is you get students that understand the laws of the game better, which sometimes rugby can be quite complicated. The best thing is maybe 2 of them want to be a referee, and we don't have a referee shortage, so we've got that, and they're learning about those challenges. Maybe next time they think about yelling at a referee from the sideline, they'll realise how hard it is to get out there. So where we can, we put as many accreditations as we can. The reason we're here today with one of our units is on strapping and taping and learning a skill that you guys probably seen on the weekend. If you don't have the skill, it's a bit of a mess on the knee, or it might cause an injury.
When I used to do pitch side work, it always used to. There were guys that were just used their whole career to doing strapping by themselves, and then they'd run out having strapped themselves, and I was like, someone's going to put my name to that. It was horrible. Sorry, Josh.
That's right. No, I was going to say, important, the importance of strapping, I guess. My partner plays footy, and unfortunately, hopefully they don't say this, the last couple of times she's been strapped has been pretty atrocious, and she's actually gone to the other trainers and been like, hey, do you mind importantly just fixing this up, and quickly ripped it off, and then, oh yeah, no, this is one that you did, yeah, thank you. But same thing, you don't want to be like I have no trust in this. The importance of that and coming in and learning it from not only you guys and not only their teachers, but also then from a physio perspective as well is unreal.
So the accreditations you put in place, are they recognized in educational systems? I don't even know the right language to use here.
Yeah, you're pretty new to the country, yeah. So the Certificate 3 is a recognised qualification, and it's a nice little segue into Certificate 4 fitness or something like that. But it's also it pairs up nicely with VCE, PE, and health and those kind of things, as well as your biologies and psychologies. It's the kind of qualification you could take and go, I wouldn't mind managing a fitness centre or a swimming pool or something like that. But like I said, they also get their VCE credits for that, so it doesn't, if they're in year 11 and 12, they don't feel like they have to drop out of the rugby academy to pick up a subject that's going to be a scored assessment. So that's included. The first aid is obviously accredited as well. And then we just have a few units that aren't accredited, but they're designed to, whet the appetite or benefit them as an athlete. So we do a nutrition unit, but we focus heavily on recognising what whole foods are and processed foods, and hopefully, particularly with the Pacifica people, my mum's Māori as well, type 2 diabetes is through the roof in our community. And when our students start to learn about these healthy eating, what the damages that sugar can do to us and things like that, hopefully they're going to take that home to their family, and there's a flow-on effect for the community. There's a flow-on effect for playing community sport. There's a bigger situation here. Probably one of our biggest targets with what we do and why we do it with the demographics we do it with is around youth justice. So in Victoria, 96% of the kids in youth justice systems are early school leavers, found disengagement in school. Most of them didn't play a team sport, and that their team could become a youth gang or something like that. So while programs like this aren't a silver bullet for that, they do make a dent. If you can get a kid excited to come to school all of a sudden, feel like they belong there, feel like they're succeeding in school, even if it's just on the rugby field, it might put a dent in them picking the wrong pathway down the track. So everything we do is for better student outcomes, to make better people, and if we happen to get a couple of professional athletes out of it, it's just a nice little bonus, isn't it?
No, I love that. Using something that they're interested in as a vehicle. Like if I was sitting in a boring maths class, like learning about statistics, like you were saying, I'd just be sitting there twiddling my thumbs, like I wouldn't understand a bloody thing. But if they said, if we're looking at kicking efficiency and in the Collingwood versus Essendon game, I'd be like, yep, sweet, no worries, I'm all over that. So same thing, like you're using something that they're interested in as the vehicle to then obviously drive that engagement, which is really cool.
It's hugely important work, man. It's so awesome to hear those changes so that you can be making. So I have two little follow-ups. Firstly, like obviously we're here at ProPhysio Plus helping a bit with strapping and some lifting technique. Do you have any other professions or businesses that you reach out to help alongside that as a kind of outreach? Anyone else that you use that's interesting that we haven't thought about?
Yeah, so we've got partners in different spaces. So one of the things we do, so we're teamed up with the Australian Sports Foundation. I mentioned we're a not-for-profit, so people can actually do a tax-deductible donation towards us, and we're really transparent how we use that. That goes straight back into our kids. So we offer what we call reach scholarships to our students at schools. So if they are committing themselves to playing club rugby union, they just commit. They don't have to be the best player, but they show up week in, week out. That shows us a level of commitment. But on the other side of that, we want to see that they're career focused in school. So they've got an aspiration to do a career, go to university, study. And what we try to do is support them there. So they might never have met a physio in their life, but we can bring a physio and meet them, or a lawyer or a police officer or whatever that may be. We try to get them in front of those kind of people. We do partnerships, so we've got just got a brand new compression partner in St. Leia's. So the guy originally started the 2XU business, and now he's come up with these compression that are just unbelievable in what they do. We're with Puma, and we try to give those discounts back to schools, and that gets the kids pretty excited when they wear those kind of things. So chest puffed out a little bit more when you've got your Puma kit on. We've got a partnership with an organisation called SCODAL. So I mentioned before, we collect some data on students. One of the ones that we try to get is a check-in on mental health. So it's a really simple check-in app that the students at the start of a lesson or a home group can check in how you're feeling today, and they can sort of basically select an emoji on how they feel and why you're feeling that way, and they can select multiple things to it could be exams, could be family, could be something like that, and then just any other comments to the teacher, and they can write nothing, or they might feel confident enough to write it, they just didn't want to go and speak about it because they could break down or they feel a bit shy about it or whatever, and that gives us really important data. And it's kind of taken a step further now, where the student could just select that they're feeling jealous, and it'll actually identify what that feeling is and some tools to deal with jealousy before you go running off, exiting class for some reason. Yeah, exactly. So every chance we get, we try to build those partnerships and ways that can help. And we just signed another deal with an organisation called Strive Teaching, and we talked about careers a little bit. So it does this really basic test which sets the kids up for if they're career ready and what direction they should take and what subjects, and it gives the school some tools to go, such and such needs to work on some literacy here or something else, and before they're career ready, before they're ready to go into a profession of some sort. So we do lots of little things like that. Our biggest supporters are the Melbourne Rebels, the professional rugby union team here in Melbourne. They love our work, they love what we're doing, and they're seriously committed to young Victorians being in the Melbourne Rebels team. I think the boys is something like 16 in the men's team, and the squads, should I say, and the female squad's something like 90% local girls who are getting paid to play, which is really cool. But they want to see Wallabies coming out of Victoria left, right and centre, and current Wallaby squad, there's probably 4 Victorian public school boys that are in there getting stuck in, some pretty impressive players. So they're a big supporter of us, so we're really, really lucky with that.
How did that come about? Like, what did you approach Melbourne Rebels first, or they saw what you were doing and kind of approached you on the back end, like slid into the DMs a little? Or
no, it's a little bit of both. I mean, like when I started Fountain Gate, we were the first rugby academy in the state, and I was a teacher there, and so we had Rebels on our jersey, and that was the first of them to sort of come along. There's a few that have sort of started their own thing in years between. But when I left teaching, the schools go, hey, how do we start one of these? And that was probably the little seed in my head. I was like, well, I know how to do that. And so, now every new rugby academy that comes through Academy Movement, and we do all those things from an educational standpoint. Like, we understand how schools run and how to do these properly in a sustainable way that's going to carry on. Like, part of the reason Fountain Gate was successful was I had a rugby background and I was there all the time and I was their teacher. So we do the same thing. We find a teacher that knows rugby but is their teacher and can be there and build those relationships and someone they trust. And it's really tricky to do this when you're trying to bring external coaches in at obscure hours during the day. Like, rugby for us becomes a subject because we can link it to the curriculum and make it work as a subject. It's not just a after school program, which sometimes for our kids is really challenging. They've got to go home and look after a sibling, or it's when you can go, man, I got rugby today, 2 periods, how good's that? It's a reason to show up.
I suppose the next question that I have would be, what's next? What's next for you, mate? And what's next for Academy Movement?
Yeah, it's always the great unknown. Like, it's a tricky thing when you go from being a pretty solid paycheck to paycheck teacher to something new like this. We've just had meetings with the Victorian Government, Department of Education, just last week about our program and our points of difference. So we're looking to get some support there. We will naturally probably just keep progressing into multiple different sports as time goes on. As much as I probably cop it from my Kiwi mates about helping Australian rugby, I'd love to see this work as a program nationally. I think there's so many benefits that are bigger than rugby, but rugby's a great sport to be doing with. So I look at places like Western Sydney, which is the biggest Pacifica population in Australia, but it has one rugby union club, Shoot Shield Club, covering that entire area because of, I guess rugby league's so big over there and everything else, but there's such a big pathway in union. Outside of Australia, there's not many places to play rugby league anymore. Outside of Australia for rugby union, you can go to Japan, you can go to France, you can go to South Africa, you can go all over the place, Argentina, and there's places to play and see the world. Some of our girls are realising that now in the sevens setup. It's an Olympic sport. It's a Commonwealth Games sport. Probably a touchy subject at the moment, Commonwealth Games, but you can go all over the world. And those girls are so good to watch that they're getting paid the same as the men's team. And so, we're finding now some of our girls are getting to play Super Rugby and then go off to Japan for their season and play over there and get to see a bit of the world. So, it's a natural, I guess back to your question, it is natural to think, we could keep doing this for multiple sports and expanding as a company. Obviously my passion lies in rugby union, but I'll I'll have a soccer guy one day and I'll have a basketball guy one day, and all those kind of things doing their thing as well, but using that model.
I think we might be getting close to wrapping up, hey, but something that, as you've been talking, has struck me, and it's very similar to what we're trying to do, is we're working really hard to be connectors, and that what we want is for people to get where they need to be to have the biggest impact. And what it strikes me as when you speak is that you're putting these kids where they need to be with the physios over here if they want to be physios, lawyers over here, or using an app because they're not comfortable speaking or they don't have the footwear. So we've got this thing with Puma, and building these relationships, which is a massive part of creating engagement. This is a long-winded way of saying when you bring your kids in here and they do a couple of hours with us and they do their taping and they learn a little bit of lifting, that's great, and it makes us feel good because we're doing stuff for the community. But I feel that we can offer more. So if you were to have an ask and there's no limit to limit to how much it cost or anything along those sorts of lines, what could we do more for you that would be beneficial? I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I like that money no object question. Like, what would you do? What would you do if money wasn't in the conversation?
Yeah, I don't think money's not always a big thing. Sometimes it's just effort and connection. So where we, most of these year 10s at some point will have to organise work experience. Like if they can organise work experience at a physio, that could be we talk about sliding door moments all the time. We've got them with the Melbourne Rebels, like little traineeships and different things like that, where they get a little taste of what's it like behind the scenes. So it's little things like that. I definitely know that our kids can get injured in the sport of rugby quite regularly, and often don't go and get those things checked out. So where there's opportunities to come in and get it checked out, or go to the school or whatever it may be, those would be massively impactful things, particularly for families that often don't have a lot, and there could be 7 or 8 siblings in the family too, and you can fly under the radar if you've got a sore ankle, and hopefully it's not serious, but it could be. Like the amount of kids that never got through there because they didn't look after their injuries correctly is such a big one. It's something that sometimes we take for granted, but they'll just keep sucking it up and trying to push through on it, and that might be the worst thing for them. It's just where you can put in connection, education and time, and inspiration is the biggest thing. So we can inspire, but we can't motivate, but motivation often comes from inspiration. So it's an intrinsic thing, motivation, and it's really hard to tell a kid, hey, you should really do this. But if they feel like they want to do it, they're inspired to do it, then it's a game changer.
Motivation is fleeting as well. Like everyone wakes up on a Monday morning and they're like, well, not everyone, but you've woken up and you've been like, right, I'm going to smash this, and 3 days later you're like, oh god. And it's using that motivation to be able to build consistency. And I think practicing taping once is great, practicing it twice is better, practicing it 5 or 6 times over the course of several weeks is great, and same with lifting. Lifting tech is great, and so getting that repetitive messaging across seems to me to be a thing that can be developed, right? It's all building consistency in these habits.
Yeah, and that's it. One of the first unit we do with all of our academies is goal setting and healthy habits, and the goal setting thing's good. We've all done it. The healthy habits, I think, is the most powerful thing. So we have a tracker, and it's everything from 8 hours sleep or this much water or whatever it may be, and they can track that every single day until it becomes habit. And that's what elite athletes are like. It becomes habit. It's elite habits. It shouldn't be a task anymore. And you're right. How often do we read an inspirational book or a book about a certain diet that we want we're going to get clean eating, and then 4 weeks later it's fallen apart again because motivation is really fleeting, and unless it becomes the norm and the habit, I don't think it sticks. So that's huge for us. Yeah.
No, I think that's it from me, mate. Thank you so much for coming in. We stole you away for a good half hour there, 35 minutes nearly. Thanks for coming up having a chat. Really awesome to hear more about Academy Movement and the rugby being the vehicle between motivation and I suppose, good grades and healthy habits for the whole family, and yeah, the flow-on effect that has is not something that I was kind of really thinking of before I came up here today. So thank you again for coming in. Really good insight to Academy Movement and a little bit about you.
Last little bit, if we'll obviously put your contact details in the show notes, professional. But if people want to get in touch with you, easiest way?
Yeah, just through our website. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, pretty much at Academy Movement for all of those. So yeah, and if you've got kids out there that are struggling to engage in school, would engage with the sports program, and look up where we do our schools and see if you're in the zone or in the general area and do it. But we're starting to get to every pocket of Victoria slowly but surely. So yeah, love to help you out.
Awesome, man. Looking forward to see where this goes.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Jimmy.